In this video, I'll show you a step-by-step process that I use to create coloring books using AI so that you can create your own and start selling it on Amazon KDP. If you're new here, I'm Pat and I've been publishing AI coloring books on Amazon KDP for just under a year now. I've managed to go from complete beginner to earning my first $10,000 online thanks to this method, whilst documenting my journey and sharing my experience with you guys on this YouTube channel. Hopefully this video will be helpful to any of you who are looking to get started with Amazon KDP. Coloring books are currently a very profitable niche with a relatively low barrier of entry for beginners due to the rise of popularity in artificial intelligence. Due to AI, we no longer have to hire illustrators or purchase graphics online. We can do the entire process ourselves, even if we're not artistically inclined. Anyways, without further ado, let's get to the video. There are two elements that go into creating a coloring book: the cover as well as the interior, also referred to as a manuscript. We're going to be using Canva to format and create both of those. Let's start with the interior. First of all, we need to decide on what sort of format and what sort of size we want for our coloring book. There are two popular coloring book formats, 8.5 by 8.5 inches, as well as 8.5 by 11 inches. In this video, I'll show you how to create an 8.5 by 8.5 coloring book, but the process is exactly the same for any other size you pick. In order to create a design in Canva, we simply click Create a Design. Then we click Custom Size, and this is where we can insert the size for our coloring book. Even though we know the format we're going to be using, this is not actually the exact size we're going to be entering here, and this is because we're going to be using bleed. I'll explain what that means in a second. In order to get our dimensions, we have to go to the Amazon KDP website, and we scroll down to the section which covers bleed. So as you can see here, bleed is a printing term that refers to when printed items on a page, such as images or illustrations, reach all the way to the edge of the page. As you can see from the picture here, on the right hand side we have an example with bleed because the illustration is reaching all the way to the edges of the page, and on the left hand side we have an illustration without bleed, as you can see by the white margins surrounding the perimeter of the page. We're going to be using bleed. That doesn't necessarily mean we're going to be extending our illustrations all the way to the edge. However, it gives us an option to do so if we would like to. This, however, will impact the dimensions of the template we're going to be using. So we scroll down further in order to get the dimensions for bleed. If you expand this little section, you can see a table. So in this table, as you can see, if we're looking to create a book which is 8.5 by 8.5 inches, we're actually going to be creating a document which is 8.625 by 8.75 inches to accommodate for the bleed. The general rule of thumb is to add 0.125 inches to the width of the book and 0.25 inches to the height. Now that we have our dimensions, we can go back to Canva and create our template. Make sure you change the unit to inches. So width 8.625 by height 8.75. Create new design. Now that we have our template created in Canva, we need to set our margins. Margins depend on the dimensions of the book. So once again, we have to go back to the KDP website in order to get the margin size for our particular size. So we just scroll down a little further. As you can see here, the dimensions will vary depending on the page count of the book interior. At this point, we have to make a decision on how many pages we would like a coloring book to have. I've decided that my coloring book is going to have 50 coloring pages, which means we need to double that number, so the actual page count is actually going to be 100. This is because coloring books are usually printed single-sided to prevent bleed through, meaning there will be a white page in between of every coloring page. So because our book is going to have 100 pages, it fits into this category. So as you can see, the inside margin is going to be 0.375 inches, and the outside margin is going to be 0.375. This is because we're using bleed. Now we can head back to Canva to set our margins. In order to set the margins, we're going to have to utilize the ruler tool. If you don't have the ruler tool enabled, as you can see, I've got it here, you can simply go to File, Settings, and click Show Rulers and Guides. Alternatively, you can use the hotkey Shift+R to enable and disable the ruler. Then we simply click the ruler and drag the margin down to the desired width. It might be difficult to get the exact dimensions, so in order to make it easier, zoom in on the page a little bit. Okay, as you can see, one of my margins is already set. I recommend you start from the top, as this is the easiest one to get, and now I'll show you a simple trick so you can get the rest of the margins with ease. So now that you have one of your margins set, you can go to Elements and just find a square shape. Click it. Now insert a shape. You want to put it in a corner where you've already set your margins, and now hold Shift and resize the square so that it fits the size of the margin. Now the square is exactly 0.375 inches by 0.375 inches. Now you can use the square as a template in order to set the rest of the margins. So you simply go to the left, you click, and you drag the margin in, and as you can see, it snaps into place. Now you move the square to the other corner, and do the exact same thing. Click and drag down, snaps into place, and now you do the same for the other side, and now you're done. Now you can delete the square as we don't need it anymore. Additionally, what I like to do for my coloring books is I like to create a frame to house the illustrations. This is optional, however I think it looks more aesthetically pleasing to have a frame around the illustration rather than randomly cutting it off with white space. In order to do that, you can simply search within Elements for a frame, and then in here just click See All on Graphics, and as you can see here there's a huge selection of frames to use. I'm just going to go with a simple one like this one. As you can see, some of the elements have a Pro icon there. I'm fortunate enough to have Canva Pro. However, if you don't, I'm sure you can find a free frame to use for your book. Now we simply set the placement as well as the dimensions for our frame. As you can see, it will snap into place if I want to put it in the center. That's perfect. And that's our template for the coloring page done. Now we need to create the template for the rest of the book. So what you should do is just create a new page. This is going to be our blank page. This is going to be a page that houses our illustrations. So you can click here to go into grid view, highlight the pages, do Ctrl+C or right click and copy, and then you simply do Ctrl+V in order to paste until you reach a page count of 100. As you can see, the page count is 100, so we're done with our interior template. We can now get to the fun part, which is generate the images in order to populate our coloring book. In order to generate the images, we're going to be using Midjourney. At this point, you should have a good idea on what your coloring book's going to be about. However, if you don't, it's very important that you perform a keyword research in order to find a niche that will actually sell. There's no point of making a coloring book that there's no demand for and that's not going to make any money. Our time will simply be wasted, so we want to get this right before we commit. If you don't yet know how to do a keyword research, I've got a video explaining step by step on how to do that. You can find the link in the description of this video. Anyways, let's assume we did our research and we found that coloring books on ocean animals are a great hot niche with a ton of demand and low competition, and we're going to make a ton of money. So this is what we're going to be creating this video. Just so you know, I haven't done any research on this. This is just a random topic that came into mind. So this may or may not be a good topic for a coloring book. This idea just came into mind and I'm going to be creating this coloring book just for the sake of this video. In order to generate an image with Midjourney or any other AI software, we need a prompt. So this is the prompt format I'm going to be using. Coloring page, dolphin jumping through waves, no shading, high details, thick lines. Alright, now we press enter and let's see what AI generates. Okay, as you can see, our images are now generated. So here's 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, let's say I like this image and I would like to use it for my coloring book. What we want to do with all the images we generate before we put them into Canva is upscale them. This is going to increase the resolution of the picture and make the lines sharp so that it looks good when it's printed out. So there's two ways of upscaling. You can click Subtle or Creative. Both of these will generate an image based on this. Subtle will simply increase the resolution without making any changes. Creative will sort of try to get creative with our picture. So I'm going to click both just so we can see what we come up with. Okay, our images are now generated. Let's take a look at them. So that's the creative one. That's the subtle. As you can see, not a ton of difference between the two. However, what I normally do is just click both of them, let it generate two upscales, and I choose the one I like more. So I like this one. So now if we want to download the image, we simply click here, download image, and the image will be downloaded. So now we go back into Canva, and what we can do is we simply go to our downloads and we drag and drop the image. That's one option of adding an image. As you can see, that's what I normally do. Alternatively, you can go here to uploads. You can click upload files and then browse the files on your computer and upload them into here. Okay, now we simply want to position the image where we want it. Just zoom in to make it easier. Okay, let's just put it where the frame is. Size it accordingly and make sure it's centered. Okay, here we are. So now the image is sitting above the frame that we created. We want to make sure the image is below the frame. The way we can move images back and forth between the layers, we can simply right click, layer, and then center back or bring to front and so on. Or we can go here, click position, layers, and we can simply drag and drop the image where we want it. So now we placed it beneath the frame. Okay? And that's our first page done. Now, if we want to generate more images with the same prompt format, we can simply click it. This will populate the text box, and now we just change the relevant bits in order to get another image. So let's say we're going to change dolphin to a sea turtle swimming amongst coral. Okay, press enter. Okay, here's our 4 images. Okay, I like this image, but let's say we don't really like the fish in the background. We'd like to get rid of it. So there's 2 ways to do that. You can do that in Canva. However, Midjourney has a very handy tool called the editor. So we can click editor. And now we can highlight the section of the image we would like to get regenerated. Okay, and then we click submit. This will basically generate a new image, but only change the section that we've highlighted rather than the entire image. As you can see, we're now presented with 4 more results with that section of the image edited. So we just choose one, let's say that one, and now upscale it. I'm going to upscale it subtle and creative. Okay, now that we have our 2 images, we simply analyze both of them and pick one which looks better. I think this one's a bit more detailed, so I'm going to download this one. Click download. As you can see, the image is now downloaded. We head back to our design. Simply drag and drop it into Canva. And position the image just like we did before. Okay, that's 2 of our images done. One quick tip to make your images look even better. You can click on Edit Image, go to Adjust. And what you can do is you can basically increase this slider, blacks, and then increase the whites one a little bit. This will basically get rid of the shadows, if there are any. And if any of the lines are not particularly strong, let's say they're a bit gray rather than black, by increasing these, you will make the image a lot more clearer. You will get rid of shading and make the lines pop a bit more. I normally do that to all of my illustrations in the book. That makes the lines super sharp and makes the illustrations really clear. As you can see, it's super quick and easy to generate those images, so we can get this book knocked out in no time. There's actually a way you can make this even quicker and automate some of the process. Let me show you how to do that. We can use ChatGPT in order to generate all the prompts we need for Midjourney in order to generate the images. This is the prompt I would normally write in order to achieve this. I am creating a coloring book about ocean animals using AI. Here's my prompt format that I'll use to generate those images. I give it my prompt format. As you can see, I put animal and scene in asterisks. Generate 50 unique prompts using this format. Replace animal with an ocean animal. Replace scene with relevant scene for the coloring book. Okay, let's see what it produces. Boom. We have all our prompts generated in seconds, and all of them are completely unique. This can't get any easier. Now we can simply take those prompts and copy and paste them into Midjourney in order to generate our images quickly. So dolphin, sea turtle, they're already done. Okay, octopus, there we are, copy. We go here, paste, move to the next one, copy, paste, and then we keep going until we have all of our 50 images generated. Of course, not all of them are going to be perfect. It gives us a starting point, and then we can select the good images and keep generating until we're happy with the results. Please do me a favor, if you're enjoying this video so far, smash the like button for the YouTube algorithm. It doesn't cost you anything, but it helps me out a lot to reach a new audience and grow this channel further. Also, if you'd like to see more from me, make sure you subscribe to this channel so you're notified when I upload a new video. Okay, now that our interior is fully populated, we can give a name to our file. So I'm going to call it an ocean coloring book interior. And we need to save it as a PDF. So we go here, click share, download, and we want to select PDF print. Tick flatten PDF. Make sure all pages are selected and the color profile is RGB. Now we can simply click download. And here we are. That's our interior done. Just a quick tip. File sizes on interiors can get quite large, especially if you're using high resolution pictures. As you can see, my one is 260 megabytes. So in order to avoid any issues with uploading it to KDP later, we might want to compress the PDF to make the file size a bit smaller. So I use this website. It's free to use. It's called ilovepdf.com. The link is in the description. You can simply drag and drop your file into here, click compress PDF, and it will make the file size significantly smaller, which will mean you avoid any issues with uploading it to Amazon further on. It doesn't make a visual difference in terms of quality. However, it does reduce the file size significantly. It will probably take this file from 260 meg to about 10 or 20. But yeah, now that we're done with the interior, it's time to design the cover. Similarly with the cover, we need to get the right dimensions for our particular book. Amazon has a very handy tool called the cover calculator on their website. So as you can see here, we just fill out the form. So we're creating a paperback. Interior will be black and white. Paper type, white paper. Reading direction left to right. Measurement units will be inches. Interior trim size, we're using 8.5 by 8.5. And the page count is 100. And if you remember here from when we designed the interior, we had to choose a size slightly bigger than 8.5 because we were using bleed. That doesn't matter with the cover. All covers are created with bleed by default. So we simply choose 8.5. There isn't a different size for bleed and no bleed. Click calculate dimensions. Here we are. It gives us all the dimensions for our book. And we can simply click here to download template, which we can use in Canva to make the process much easier. As you can see here, we've downloaded a zip file. In the zip file that we downloaded, we have two templates. One's a PDF, one's a PNG. So what we're going to be using the PNG for our templates. I'm just going to drag it out of the zip file, put it in my downloads folder. Okay. So once you open the PNG, you're greeted with this, and this is basically where it's going to give us all the dimensions that we need to use. Under overall dimensions, so the 17.475 by 8.75, that's the dimensions we're going to be entering into Canva to create our template. So let's head back to Canva. And we just do 17.475 by 8.75. Okay, make sure we got inches, create new design. Now we can insert this template into Canva, and if we've done this correctly, it should match exactly the dimensions of the design that we created. As you can see, the template matches perfectly. This will serve as a base for our cover design. Now we're going to head back to Midjourney to generate the image that's going to be on the front cover of our book. Okay, let's generate the image for the front cover. And this is the prompt I'm going to be using. I decided I want the great white shark on my front cover. So great white shark swimming through coral reef, high details, vivid colors, cartoon style. The reason I've added vivid colors is because I want this image to pop. I want it to be visible to potential customers when they're scrolling through Amazon. So you definitely want to make something that stands out. As you can see, I also got rid of the no shading and thick lines because we're not creating an illustration anymore that's going to be black and white. We want an image in full color. Okay, let's see what Midjourney produces. Here's the image that's been generated. Let's say I kind of like this one, but I would like to see more variations of this. So what we can do is we can click vary and either subtle or strong. This will basically generate images based on this base image. The options are self-explanatory. It will either be a subtle difference or it will be quite a strong difference. So depending on what we're looking for, we can use those two options. I'm going to use both in this case. Okay, Midjourney created some variations of this image. So here they are. Okay, I really like this image, but I don't particularly like the fact that there's coral reef all the way along the side of it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click editor and I'm going to highlight this section of the image to be regenerated. I only want coral at the bottom. And I'll show you later why I'm doing that. Okay, here's the results. Okay, I like this. I'm simply going to upscale it with both of those options. Okay, here's the creative one. Here's the subtle. I think I prefer the subtle upscale, so let's just download it. Now we simply drag and drop the image into Canva. And position it on the right hand side where the front cover will go. Okay, here it is. What we can do if we still want to see the template that's underneath is we click the image. We go here to transparency and we can drag the transparency down a little bit. This will basically help us to position all the images accordingly so that when the book gets printed, we don't cut off anything important. Now for the back of the coloring book, I'm simply going to use a shape to fill it in with color. So I'm just going to have a back cover that is black. So we just enter a square, change the color to black, and just drag it to where we want it. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit so we can see better. So as you can see here, we got the two dashed lines. So the second dashed line is essentially where the front cover will end. So that's where we want the back cover to start. So we simply drag the shape so it's all the way to that line. Okay. Now drag it all the way down. And now we can bring the opacity down on our image and just make sure that it's positioned underneath the black square that we've just put in. So layers, okay, it's already underneath. Perfect. So we have our back cover as well as our front cover. You can drag the shapes out a little further so they go outside of the edges of the cover. This won't hurt anything at all. In fact, this will ensure that you actually fill out the entire cover all the way to the edges. I'll do the same for the front cover image as well. Okay, now that I'm happy with the result, it's time to add the heading. So we go into text, add a heading. And in here for my top heading, I'm going to have ocean animals. Now let's just select the font we would like to use. Okay, I think that's the one for me. Make it a bit bigger. In fact, I want this to be like that in 2 lines. Okay, position it. What we can do to get rid of this gap, we can go into here and we can set the spacing. You can't see this really well. Let me zoom in a little bit. And as you can see here, you can use the slider in order to adjust the spacing for the line as well as the letter spacing. Okay. Okay, that looks good. What I'm going to do is add an effect to it. So we can click on effects and then I'm going to add an outline just in black. Now we can set the thickness. Now we want to make sure the text is actually centered, not with the image, but with the actual cover. So you can drag it all the way to match the width of the page, so all the way to the black square, and then all the way to the edge on this side as well. Now we know that the image is perfectly centered. Okay, now let's create a subheading. So I'm simply just going to copy and paste this. Okay, and I'm going to write coloring book. We want the text a bit smaller than that. Okay. So I'm going to put this at the bottom. Maybe slightly bigger. Okay. Okay, I think that's pretty good. What we can do is now drag the opacity down a little bit just to make sure we're within the lines. And as you can see, we fit perfectly within the frame. We basically want to avoid being in the red because that's where the book will be cut when it gets printed out. Okay, that looks pretty good. So I'm going to bring the transparency back up. That's our front cover done. And now we need to do something for the back cover. The back cover is a great way to showcase the interior of our book. So what we can do is include some sample pages for the customer to look at. So the way we can do that is we can insert a frame. Okay, I'm just going to go with a simple square one. Just click it. And then we can later insert the images into that frame. So let's just position it accordingly. I'm going to drag the opacity down of the back cover so that we can see the location of the barcode. Now let's just duplicate this. I'm going to have 4 different sample pages. So I'm just going to paste it in 4 times and now position it where I want it. Okay, I think that looks pretty good. And as you can see, we're not covering the barcode area and we're also leaving a safe distance around the perimeter. So it's not going to get cut off when it gets printed. Now it's time to insert the images into the frames. And in order to do that, we can simply insert the image into Canva and then drag and drop it and it will snap into the frame. Now let's do that for all 4 images. And here we are. Now we can bring the opacity back up. Okay, this is what it's going to look like. Barcode will go here. If we want, we could insert some text here. Something like, I don't know, 50 unique designs or 50 unique ocean animals. Okay, so this is what I've added. 50 unique ocean animals. Let's just bring the opacity back up. There we are. And the barcode's going to go there. So that will fit in nicely. Okay, here's the cover done. Now let me show you an alternative way you can do a book cover. So instead of doing an image at the front and a blank cover at the back, we can actually do an image which spans the width of the entire book, which I think looks quite good. So let me show you how we can do that with this image. So we head back over to Midjourney. So this is the image we used for our front cover. So now if we want to make this image span the whole width of the cover, the front as well as the back, we can go to Editor and we can simply drag this and extend the image even further. Okay, it's good to go a bit further than we need. And I'll click Submit. Now Midjourney will generate an image in this aspect ratio that we just specified. So the image on the right will stay as it is. It will generate the rest of the image for us. There you go. There's 4 designs that we can potentially use. Okay, number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4. I think I like this one the most. So what I'm going to do is upscale it. And then we're going to choose one of those images, download it, and replace the cover with that. Let's just chuck it into Canva. Here it is. Okay, now let's resize it. Okay, we need to get it in the right layer. So let's drag it underneath the images on the back cover. And here it is. I don't know about you, but I think that looks way better than using a half-half design. I tend to do that with my books. It looks a lot more complete than just having a front image and then a cutoff point and then black at the back. I think this looks way more professional. It's totally up to you what you use, whatever you prefer or think looks better. I just think this looks a lot more professional. So I'm just going to drag the transparency down a little bit so we can see exactly what's going on. So as you can see, the shark is not really centered. So I'm going to move the image a little bit just so we get the shark perfectly in the middle. In fact, I'm going to zoom in a little bit to make sure the shark fills up the entire front cover of the coloring book. Okay, now let's bring the opacity back up. Okay, this is the finished product. Let's just name the file accordingly. So Ocean Animals cover, and let's save it. So we go to share, download. We want to select PDF print, just like we did for our interior, flatten PDF, and we hit download. Now we're done. We have both the cover as well as the interior of our book. We're ready to upload it to Amazon KDP. Let me show you how to do that. Okay, so once we're logged into our Amazon KDP account, we want to hit create. And then here we select paperback. Okay, so we need to enter the book details. So we're going to be using English as our language. Book title, it's going to be called Ocean Animals. And then for our subtitle, I'm going to put something like 50 fun illustrations of sea creatures. So both of those are very important. We obviously want to be targeting the right keywords, which is why it's very important that we do our keyword research before we get into creating our book. So the main keywords are going to go here, and sort of the secondary keywords we want to target are going to be going in the subtitle. So series is optional. We're going to leave this blank for now, but let's say you created more ocean coloring books or more animal coloring books. You can bundle up those books into a series, which makes it easier to find for the customers. Edition number, we leave that blank. Author, so this is where you want to put your author name or your pen name. The pen name you use will basically tie all the books together. So when you publish any books in the future, if you use the same pen name, they'll basically be under the same author page. So for the purposes of this example, I'm just going to use a pen name called Fun Coloring. And now contributors, we don't have any. So this is where your description of the book is going to be. You can use ChatGPT to generate this one, or you can type it up yourself. I'm just going to use ChatGPT and then modify it slightly. So this holds less of an importance in terms of SEO. However, it's still good to include some of the keywords. This will, to some extent, help your book to be found by your customers as well. However, it's nowhere near as important as the title and the subtitle you choose for your book. Okay, so this is the description I'm going to use. I generated it with ChatGPT and then modified it slightly. This is what it looks like. Okay, we just tick I own the copyright and I hold the necessary publishing rights because we created it ourselves. Sexually explicit images, no. Reading age, this is optional, but let's say our book is suitable for all sorts of ages, so I'm just going to say baby all the way to 18 plus. You can leave this blank as well, that's totally fine. Amazon.com is going to be our primary marketplace. If you're creating books in English, you're pretty much just going to put on .com. It is the largest marketplace on Amazon. There's absolutely no reason to be using a different marketplace unless your book is in that language specifically. So now we need to choose our categories for the book. So click choose categories. And we're going to put it in all the coloring book ones. And we're going to put it in the categories which apply to our coloring book. So I'm just going to go to children's books, subcategory, activities, crafts and games. And then in here we can select activity books. Another subcategory, coloring books, and this one's going to be a non-fiction coloring book. Okay, let's add another one. So, crafts, hobbies, and home, coloring books for grown-ups, animals. Okay, animals and general. That's where I'm going to put it. And that's all 3 categories done. Okay, we'll click save. So low content books are something like journals, notebooks, and planners. Coloring books are considered a medium content book. So we're not going to tick that. Large print book, this is not a large print book either, so we'll leave that unticked. Keywords, this is basically we want to fill out our long tail keywords for the book. Yeah, again, this holds less of an importance in terms of SEO. I don't overthink it. I don't really do too much research on that one. You want to use keywords that you haven't used anywhere else. So they could be synonyms of your title or some other words that describe your book. So this is sort of what I'm talking about. You just want something that's relevant to your book, but not necessarily included anywhere in your title or your subtitle. I'm not going to fill out the rest of this, but however, make sure you use up all the space available to you. Okay, publication date and release date are the same. Release my book for sale now. You could schedule your book's release. However, we're just going to submit it, and within 72 hours, as soon as it gets reviewed, we want it to go live. Okay, so we click save and continue. Okay, here we can just get a free ISBN from Amazon. So we just click assign ISBN. Okay. As you can see now, our coloring book has been given an ISBN number. Okay, here we select our print options. So we're going to be using black and white interior with white paper. Now let's choose the size. So 6.9 is the default. Select a different size. And we need to find 8.5 by 8.5 inches. Okay. We are using bleed in our particular case. So we're going to tick that, bleed. And now there's 2 types of covers. You can choose a matte or a gloss finish. I'm going to choose a gloss finish. Okay. And now we upload the manuscript, which is the interior for our coloring book. Okay, so we just select the file with our interior. Okay, so as I've mentioned before, it's good to compress your files. So if your file size is too big, sometimes this stage would fail. This is where you could run into issues if your file size is too large. Okay, as our manuscript is still uploading, we can go into here and upload our cover. So there is a built-in cover creator with KDP. I don't know, I've never used it, but we've created our cover using Canva. So we're just going to click here, upload a cover that you already have, and just upload the cover file. Click OK. Okay, our cover is now uploading. Okay, KDP will now take a few minutes to process both of those files. However, we can scroll down and answer the remaining questions. Did you use any AI tools creating text, images, or translations in your book? Yes, we have. Texts, some sections with extensive editing. That applies to me. I've used ChatGPT to generate the description. Images, we've got many AI generated images with minimal or no editing. So that applies to our book. And here we just put Midjourney. And then translations, we have none. Okay, so down here we can get a book preview. So we just click launch previewer, and as soon as the files are done processing, we'll be able to see the preview of our book. Okay, it looks like the files are done processing. And here we can see the preview of our book. This is exactly what it's going to look like when it gets printed. Okay, what we want to do is we want to make sure that all the elements that we have on there, so such as the text or the shark, are not being cut out. Okay, it's perfect. And then here we want to see that we're not obstructing here we also want to check that we're not obstructing the barcode. The text is where it should be. Everything's nice and centered. Okay, so that looks good. Happy with that. We don't have any error messages either, which means we got the sizing for our templates just right. And then we can use the arrow just to go to the next page and see what it looks like. And we can go through the entire content of our book. Okay. So here's what the coloring page would look like. As you can see, we left a little white space there. So our illustration fits in nicely. You can go to the next one. Okay, here's another one. As you can see, the images are always printed on the right. The images on the left should be blank because we're looking to have it all printed single-sided. You can also click here and see the thumbnail view. So if you don't want to go page by page, you can see the entire coloring book like this. As you can see, I haven't actually created 50 images. I've only done 4, and I've just duplicated it to fill the interior just for the sake of this video. Okay, so that looks right. You definitely want to make sure that all your images are on the right hand side and the pages on the left are blank, because if you ever see your image on the left, that means you messed up somewhere when creating your template. Okay, well, that looks perfect. So we simply click approve. And now we can move on to the last section, which will be the book pricing. So save and continue. So here we want to have it published to all territories. Primary marketplace, again, Amazon.com. And now we need to set the price for our book. Obviously, when setting the price for your book, you want to be competitive, but also you want to set a price where you can create a reasonable margin on the book. So you don't want to be selling it too cheap. Some people take the strategy of having the price really low when they release the book for the initial period. Then once they get a few sales, they increase the price. However, it's up to you how you want to do that. So let's say we want to sell our book for $6.99, which is the price our competitors use. The printing cost will be $2.84. We get 60% royalty. So the royalty for our particular book at this price will be $1.35. Okay. And as you can see, it auto-fills the prices for other marketplaces. However, we're free to change any of them to our liking. What I like to do is I like to use round numbers or round prices. 532 looks a bit weird, so what I would go with is like 549 or 599 for my books. And then for the other marketplaces where you can see the list price plus VAT added, you basically want to look at the price on here. So if you want to set your price nice and round, so let's say I want to go with 749, you would have to set it to one price here, let it populate, and then see what the price is with VAT included. Similarly here, the book is $6.66. Let's say we're aiming for $6.99, so we're going to have to increase this price to, let's say, $6.50. What does that equate to? Nope, that's not enough. $6.60. $6.96, so $6.65. Oh, too much. Too much again. And there we are, $6.99. So yeah, make sure you set the price. So make sure you're looking at this price when you're setting the price for other marketplaces that estimate the price including VAT separately. For marketplaces such as the US and the UK, you don't have to worry about that. The price you see here is the price that's going to be the list price. However, for these ones, you have to look at the estimated price with VAT. Okay, so just scroll down, set all the pricing to your liking. Additionally, you have the option of requesting a proof of your book. So if you want to see what it looks like when it gets printed out, you can do that here. And then once you're happy with it, you can simply click publish your paperback and your book will be published. It takes about 72 hours for the book to get moderated, and once it gets moderated and approved by Amazon, it will go live automatically. If there are any issues with your book that Amazon finds during the moderation period, they'll send you an email explaining what the issue is, and you'll be able to modify the listing and then republish it again. And that's it. Once our book is moderated, it will go live on Amazon KDP automatically, and you can start earning money. This is the process I use personally, so I hope this video helped you out a little bit. If you did enjoy this video, please smash the like button. Let me know your thoughts in the comments and subscribe to this channel if you would like to see more of my face. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.